Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day-to-day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. Today, I am so super excited for today's guest because I introduced you to one of my mentors in a recent episode, and I am continuing that trend and sharing with you some of the incredible humans who I'm working with who are making a really big difference for me personally and in my business. And I know this is like top secret from a lot of other people. They don't share this information. I feel exactly the opposite. These are the people who are transforming things so much for me that I want to make sure that everybody knows about them. And today's guest is one of those people who I have met most recently. I went to Aruba last year for the very first personal vacation that I've been on in I don't know how long. And my parting gift was I got to meet today's guest. And we have since been working together, and she is really helping me so significantly on the surface with my health. But it goes so much deeper than that and has transformed so much of what I do. And we'll talk a little bit about that today. But before we do that, I want to introduce you to Miss Kristin Sitek. She is an energy alchemist, a functional health practitioner, and a trained intuitive who works with visionary CEOs and founders who want their health to support their business growth. She has a unique way of tuning into both the physical body and the emotional and energetic patterns beneath chronic symptoms. And if you did not know this, I have some really chronic health challenges. And so Kristin has been absolutely instrumental in that for me. But she blends functional lab testing with intuitive energy work and helps founders turn their health into an advantage as they scale. So Kristin, welcome. I'm so excited you're here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we were talking about a little bit before we hit record is just how incredibly important vitality is. And as we look at this year in particular, right, we're coming off of the kind of tail of a year where there was a lot of change, a lot of disruption, a lot of stress for a lot of business owners, put people in a bit of a fear-based state. I tend to think, unfortunately, sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I think this year is going to be a little bit more of that. I think it's going to be a lot of change, a lot of people trying to figure out what's working, a lot less certainty than people are used to and would really like. I think that based on a lot of what's happening in the world, there's going to be a lot more fear. I just think that we're going to be at a place where stress and some of the things that could really derail us from a physical health perspective can really be taking hold. And that, of course, has a huge impact on our business when we are more of a founder-led business. So I want to hear your perspective on things. I want to hear why you think vitality in and of itself is so incredibly important for business owners.
Absolutely. So vitality is really at the core of every function of a business, because when you're the leader of a business, you're driving strategy, you're driving the energy of the business, you're driving how people actually show up to work and do they want to execute your vision. And then if you think about it, if you show up to work fatigued or drained, what's that going to do to your energy? What's that going to do to your leadership? How is it going to change how you show up in relationships? How is that going to impair your decision making? How is that going to impair your ability to tune into your own intuition? It slows down every process from your business perspective, and then physiologically, almost every symptom in your body can be traced back to chronic prolonged stress that's left unaddressed. So with that, that could show up as poor nutritional choices, and then you're running low in your minerals. And if you think about minerals, they're the spark plug of the body. So it's almost like you walk into a room, and instead of the room being lit at 100%, it might be lit at 20 to 30%. So boom, your vitality drops right there. Or it could show up as an infection in the gut. It could show up as brain fog, chronic fatigue, hormone imbalance where now you can't regulate your emotions. It could show up as digestion where you're bloated all the time and you're uncomfortable, and then you want to miss a boardroom lunch meeting because God forbid you eat something that doesn't feel good and you can't figure out what is going to inflame you or not. So it's really at the core of how you move throughout your day, how your relationships are, and how you run your business.
Yeah, it's such a good point. And I think so often we immediately turn to a business strategy or a new team member or a new tactic or a new tool in so many different things. And again, I say this as that person who helps you with all those things. So I do truly believe that there is a time and place for so much of that. But I also think we really do need to learn to look within as well. And we need to take care of ourselves because how we show up has such a huge impact on things. And you said something really, really interesting that I want to kind of circle back to a little bit is it's kind of the lens in which we see the world and the lens in which we experience what's happening around us as well. And I think so much of that I notice for me personally, if I feel good, I see things differently. Things annoy me much less when I'm in a great mood and I'm happy and I feel good than when I'm
Yes.
not. When I'm not, everything frustrates the life out of me, right? And so it does just have such an impact that I think sometimes we overlook in the pursuit of achieving the next goal and doing the next thing. So, what are some of the things that you guide people on and work with people through in shifting how they are feeling and showing up?
Mm. Well, just like you'd have a strategy for your business, do you have a strategy for your health? What are the foundational things that you commit to every single day that pushes you closer to vitality and further away from that stress response in the body? So, how you start the day is how the day goes. So, getting outside first thing in the morning to set your circadian rhythm, drinking enough water. So many people look to self-medicate because they're stressed. So they go towards the caffeine, they go towards the alcohol consumption, but they're never getting to the root cause. So, moving your body, using your breath work, choosing foods that love you back is a big one. So finding a relationship with food that's really nourishing, not restrictive, because there are some foods that are inflammatory, especially for individuals, whether that's through food sensitivity testing that you can identify or just inflammatory foods like your dairies and your glutens of the world. But really get in tune, having a strong relationship so that you're nourishing your body at a cellular level. Balancing your minerals becomes really important. Managing your energy becomes incredibly important. And when we think about our health, we really are body, mind, and spirit. And so many leaders are empathetic. And so they can be going through their day absorbing energy that's not even theirs to carry. So having strong energetic practices, particularly at the beginning and ending of the day, that can take you just a few minutes can make a huge difference for how the tone of your day is set and how you cleanse yourself. So you're moving forward with a heart-centered energy and not somebody else's.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You mentioned that about empathy, right? A lot of leaders are empathetic. I definitely see that and agree with that. But what are some of the other characteristics and some of the things that you see a lot from people who are leading their own business and those very kind of high achieving type individuals, which we all tend to be?
I've noticed different patterns in different generations in different populations. So when I work with women who are 50 and older, they have this almost bulldozer attitude towards their health. And it's like, well, this is what I've always done. So this is what I'm going to continue to do. And I'm going to bang my head against the wall and beat my body into submission because that's what I've always done. There's this certain switch that goes on when you get into a business mode where it's like, A plus B equals C. This is the methodology, and boom, let's just keep going. But the body doesn't work like that. And contrary to popular belief, I hear a lot of rhetoric around like the body is a machine. It's not. Hey, it's not. You can't replace one part and expect it to work the same. Everything is synergistic. Everything works in conjunction with all the other functions. That's why if you work on your liver health and you ignore your gut isn't going to be happy. Or you try to balance your hormones without looking at your liver or your gut or your lymphatic system, you're missing pieces. And so some of that trends that I see is this kind of like blindsider way. It's like, well, I've always done it this way. My body just has to deal. And they keep going off of this no sleep, work hard, push harder. And their body just decides enough is enough. And then they get to that age and they're like, well, it's just menopause. This is just the way that it is until they finally hit that wall. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's a health crisis that wakes them up. But what I would really encourage people to do is see your health as your greatest asset. Because without your health, you lose so much. So before you get to that point, it's like almost an invitation to take a pause and say, what's really going on with my health? What is my energy level trying to tell me? What are these symptoms that are chronic and that persistent trying to tell me? Because the body doesn't have a voice. So it's going to send you symptoms to get you to wake up. So whether you're a woman in menopause or you're a male driving a business and you have that same like athlete's mindset where it's just like, I'm going to go, go, go until I get to the championship, until I get to the end, my body will just have to deal. That's no longer working because the body keeps the score. And if you don't stop and pause and give it the nourishment it needs, it's going to stop you. So it's much better to get ahead of the game and have daily practices that are built into to the habits you already have, so you can kind of prevent that burnout and that chronic fatigue that really would impede everything else otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were mentioning the 50 plus group, and I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting so very close. It is so overwhelming to think about. But that being said,
oh no, aging is a privilege denied to many. You're heading into that main character era. That's a great place to be.
It's coming in April. Like, how is it possible? But anyway, that being said, what are some of the other patterns that you see in some of the other groups?
As far as the emotional patterns, it's very interesting because depending on the age group, I can, even without seeing someone's profile or looking at them, it's just the way that they talk about certain things is very interesting. So someone who comes in their 30, they tend to be very introspective, like open to different ideologies and like very slow going with their changes, and they want to make sure they're not overwhelmed. There's almost like this means of being in touch with their emotions, in touch with how they choose to make change. And like the further people go up, it's like, I'm just going to do it. And there's like less emotional attachment to the change, which is really, really interesting. So part of me wants to like do my own little study about the difference in generations and how they approach making changes, because I've noticed the 20, 30-year-olds, there's a huge emotional component to changes, whereas 40 to 50, 60-year-old, there's almost like, I kind of position this like horses with blindsiders on. There's less emotional involvement. And I've also seen this too with men. Men are like, boom, done with the change, where women need to like metabolize this and get emotionally involved with the idea of making a change. So it's fascinating to watch.
It is fascinating. And because I do so much change management in large scale companies and smaller companies, it is fascinating as you're saying that. I'm literally picturing the way people even approach change in a business setting as well. So, my love of all things patterns. So I find this so fascinating. But it is interesting because some of what you were talking about, and I'll share just a little bit of my experience and journey as well. Like for most of you, if you've been listening for a while, you probably know that I had breast cancer. I was diagnosed on December 31st. Happy New Year's, 2019. And so while the entire world was going through the pandemic, I was kind of a little bit oblivious to what was happening in the outside world because I was going through my own surgeries and radiations and healing and that whole journey. And so you would think that might have been my wake up to say like, hey, what you're doing here might not be working. You might want to make some changes. But what I did was major surgery, middle of radiation, all the things. And I was back working 2 days later and still going because I have always been called the Energizer Bunny. It's something many people have called me in many different places throughout the years because I am super high achieving. I'm super highly productive. And I just naturally go. And I always, not that I wasn't focused on my health, not that I wasn't focused on it in some respect, but I very much had this I will win kind of perspective. Like I'm so focused on this thing right now, so important right now. Yes, I know that's important. Yes, I'm making like steps in the right direction, but I'm going to deal with that next. I'm going to deal with that later. And what happened was the next and the later just kept moving until finally I got to the point where I was like, I can see I kind of am at like a path where I could take, like a fork in the road and I could keep doing what I'm doing now. And I'm probably going to end up having some things where I'm not recovering and in remission and in a great place after, what was a pretty scary experience, right? I could end up in a place where I'm not here much longer. And so I just kind of recognized in myself, like, it's always going to be I will when, unless I actually say that now is when. And there isn't like a magic time where you're done with everything, because there was always another business I was launching, or another person I needed to hire, or another huge opportunity that I saw in the market that I wanted to go and reinvent something or do something and launch something around. And like, I just, being that person who's very fueled by what I do, there was always something else that was going to come first until I decided that this needed to come first. And so it was a bit serendipitous that we got to meet on that trip. I was quite happy about that, because it was exactly the time that I had made the decision that I was going to do something. So that worked out really beautifully. But if you're listening, I'm just going to share my personal wish for you is, if you are that person like me who was I will winning it with things, let this year be the win, because your body deserves it. You deserve that change, and you will feel so much better than you ever imagined that you would. But do you see that with others too, or am I alone in this approach in life?
No, well, first and foremost, I just want to honor the fact that you went through that and you came out on the other side. So now I would consider you a thriver. And I love that you just shared that it was almost like an identity shift, because you were tying your identity to the producer that you are at work. But when I work with people, I always start with what I call success mapping. Like, who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? So it's almost like you get super clear on what you want for your health. And then we allow an identity shift to take place. So, one of my identities is that I'm a health conscious person. And so when I think about being a health conscious person and making choices through that lens, every choice gets filtered through what I said I wanted. Then I ask, does this align? So if someone offers me an alcoholic beverage, I say I want great energy. I want to have a healthy brain until I'm 90. I want to be able to sleep great at night. I want to have exceptional hormone balance. I want to, have strong gut health. Does this align? No, it simply doesn't fit. And it doesn't, like, there's no emotional filters that needs to go through. There's no math that needs to be done. This is who I said I am. This is what I said I want. And here are the decisions. And then the math is done. So I think that could be really important too. And then rounding back to you, yes, I have so many people walk into my practice and they've been on their health journey. I'm working with a CEO and founder out in Washington right now, and he's been on his health journey for 10 years. And the reason why is because he hasn't gotten the answer. So part of the reason is he doesn't have a guide. He's had random protocols thrown at him that haven't worked. And then part of it is that simple thing of like, well, he's a founder and a business owner. So there are times where it has fallen to the wayside. But if we can look at this and think, okay, I have one body to live in. It's the only way my soul gets to experience life here on earth. And it doesn't come with a warranty. There are no spare parts. There are no replacements. So how can we look at this as like the greatest privilege to take care of our body, because we only get one? So shifting that perspective away from having our identity solely tied to our business and coming home to ourselves. And if we really love ourselves and we're going to move with radical self-care, that starts with how we choose to think, how we breathe, how we move, how we believe, how we nourish. All those things become critically important. So you're not the first person to step into my practice and have that. And you certainly won't be the last. But my hope is that when everyone is done for me, there's this transformation that happens not only in the physical body, but how we think and how we feel and how we make choices from a radical place of self-love versus, again, restriction or something I have to do. You don't have to do anything. We get to.
Yeah, I love that so much about your work. And one of the things that is really interesting that I've heard you talk about a lot, and I've personally experienced with you that I'd love to have you talk more about, is I have had some chronic issues that have been these mysteries. I've been to every doctor you could possibly imagine. I've been to traditional doctors. I've been to healers. You name it. If you can think of someone, I have probably done it 12 times. I have tried it all, and I just could not seem to get answers. And I would go and do blood work and lab testing and things. And inevitably, every doctor I would see is, you're fine. I can't see anything wrong. Maybe you should go talk to this person. I don't see anything wrong. Maybe you should go do this. And here it is now, like 12, 15 years since this challenge had first started for me. And so why is it that happens so often? Because I know I'm not alone in that, even if my manifestation of my challenge with my feet and my legs might be different than someone else's. Like, why is it that so often we're told, no, you're fine, there's nothing wrong, yet we're very physically experiencing something that is not actually okay?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because again, that's a phrase that I hear so often. Well, my doctor ran this lab and everything looked normal. So a couple things. One, the testing that gets done in a conventional doctor's office is severely outdated and it's not robust. And number two, they are comparing you to anyone in every population that has ever walked into a lab to have that particular test done. So you could be compared to a vital 17-year-old boy or a 90-year-old woman with breast cancer and all the things. So there's this huge range. And if you fall in that normal range, that really doesn't tell you anything. And we don't even want to be normal in that range because the normal American, when you think about it, I hate to say it, is unwell. So working with a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, we're trained to run advanced functional lab testings that get to the many root causes. And I'll round back to that in a second, but we're also looking at a tighter range. And that's really, really important because I see this particularly with stress and hormones that come back like, oh, you're normal. Well, you're comparing me to this crazy range. So we want to look at a tighter range to get what is optimal for you. We always want to work in that optimal range. And then again, rounding back to, the point I made earlier where the tests aren't like as advanced or there's multiple root causes, that's the key. Because when you work in an insurance model, there's like one test, there's one protocol, off you go. Like if you break your foot, you're going to go to a podiatrist. If you have a stomach issue, you go to a gastro specialist. But nothing works independently. You have to look at all the systems. So the advanced functional lab testing that I run is looking at your hormones, your immune system, your detoxification, your digestion, your energy production, your nervous system, and then I'm folding in custom energy healing to look on what's going on in the energetic body. That's a huge one that gets missed because let's say most of us, we all live on Earth and we have life experiences that can lead to trauma. And there's different forms of trauma. I'm not a trauma specialist, but what I can tell you is that any emotional and any experience that has a heightened emotional charge can get stored in every cell tissue in your body and then manifest as a physical symptom. So it can drive a physical imbalance that does need to be supported at the physical body level, but also at the energetic level. So there we go again with that multiple root system approach to where we're looking at the whole person in front of me. So it's never just one test or one lab or one mindset thing or one energetic thing. I'm really zooming out to see the whole person and looking at, okay, where are all the imbalances and how can we bring those back into balance by supporting the body, supporting the mind, and supporting the spirit? Because the craziest things about the human body that blows my mind every time is how freaking intelligent it is. When you get cut, you don't have to instruct the body on how to heal that cut or to, scab. It does it on its own. And we just need to give the body the right input. So let's say that there's a nutritional deficiency on board. We're going to bring in some custom mineral balancing, but we're also going to learn about the foods that would nourish us. So things like that can be really, really helpful. So as another example, when it comes to functional lab testing, one example of where conventional medicine can often go wrong is they'll run a test to get one answer. So for example, I had a woman come to me with chronic digestive issues. She had a colonoscopy, she had an endoscopy, and then she had a simple inflammation test and the marker came back high. So they put her on antibiotics and they gave her an anti-inflammatory. The problem with that plan is, and I'm not anti-medication, but antibiotics can kill off all your good bacteria. So now you have another problem. And then also the anti-inflammatory is just masking the underlying problem. Yes, there's inflammation, but why is there inflammation? So one of the advanced lab tests that I like to run is the GI map, and it's 5 pages of data where I can zoom out and look at the entire terrain of the gut. So with that, I can see if there's what's going on with the fungi and yeast, what's the bacterial balance, are there infections, are there parasites or worms, what's going on there that's really driving the inflammation. And then from there, we go in and address those imbalances using some really great herbs that are really gentle on the gut, but really powerful without wiping out all the good bacteria, because that will really impede you long term. We need those good bacteria to digest our food and give us our vitality. They play a huge role in how well your gut instincts work because there's the brain gut access. So that's just one example of where modern medicine can really miss the mark when it comes to testing, and how functional lab testing can really get you the answers that you haven't been able to get elsewhere.
Yeah, I love that. And one of the things that I like so much, because you all know listening to the podcast, one of the things I talk about all the time is ecosystems, right? Similar to Kristin, I don't just teach you one thing when it comes to scaling your business, because I would honestly be doing you a super disservice if I did. Trust me, my business model would be so much easier if I just picked one little thing to laser focus in on. But the reality is the business is an ecosystem. And if you want to scale successfully, you need to look at it as an ecosystem. And yes, you may have a burning need in one particular area or a problem in one area that's rising to the surface, you need to address it, sure, but you need to understand the underlying interconnectivity and the root cause. And you need to know that soon as you tune this like one dial, there's other things that need to tune along with it. And so one of the things that I loved so much about your work and why I felt like you were the person I wanted to partner with was that view that you take, that very, what I consider like an ecosystem view of the body, and really digging into what's the problem, what's the solution, and how do you keep making the adjustments that you need to so that you keep moving towards the goal of that vitality and that really beautiful health. So I wish others talked about that and thought about it in the same way. But I think that one of the things that you do, even beyond the core functional, is the energetic piece. So could you talk a little bit more about the role that that plays and why you think that's such a kind of amplifier of some of the results that you help people with?
With joy. So in my journey, I'll tell it through the lens of my journey and then how I fold it in with my clients. But when I was at my sickest, I was having extreme panic attacks, anxiety, to the point where I would be at my desk and I would have a 10 o'clock meeting coming up. It'd be 9:50, and I would go to a phone booth and time out how much time I could have a panic attack, come back to work, do what I need to do, have another one. And it was like that for probably a year. I had chronic gut issues where my gut would be inflamed no matter what I ate. My nails were peeling. My hair was thinning. I was exhausted all the time. And so I went on my journey. I did the functional lab test. I customized my protocol. And I got better. I was about 80% better. My energy was coming back online. I didn't have as many panic attacks. So in my world, that was a big deal. But there was something missing. And I didn't feel that like bound out of bed energy. I wasn't really all that happy. And this bloating was getting better with the supplements. It made a huge dent, but it just wasn't where I wanted to be. I had to guess what size clothing I was going to be at the end of the day. And just that wasn't fun. And so I stumbled upon energy healing, and I had a profound experience where when I was lying on the table and this practitioner didn't even touch me, but I could feel the effects of the energy. I saw all these flashbacks from childhood. I saw my grandmother giving my twin brother candy and not giving it to me. And so for me, that was really profound because I was linking self-love with candy and sugar because I saw that being given to somebody else, and that's how I wanted to self-soothe. I saw myself getting publicly screamed at by my dad for missing a pop fly when I was in baseball. And so I share all this because there was all these flashes of the life that got coded into my subconscious and into my energetic body that was unconsciously driving behaviors because I was self-soothing with sugar, but it was also physically impacting me. And so just after that one session, I noticed a lot of the bloating was going away and I was feeling lighter, and the panic attacks that I was struggling with, that nothing I was doing was really touching, even through the breath work and getting outside and movement. I've always been an athlete. And it was so profound that I wanted to know more. And so I studied Reiki, became a Reiki master. I studied integrated energy therapy. Now I'm on to working with the 12 archangels. I do inner child work and shadow work. And shadow work has really been an X factor too, because again, as a business owner, you're going to face the fears, you're going to face the doubts, and you're going to have this little, it's almost like the angel on one shoulder, devil on the other, where you can write all the affirmations out and you can know a truth, but energetically, you don't feel that way. So when we're talking about the identity that we want to take on as a healthy person, so many people struggle with what they say they want and what they actually do. And it's because they have this subconscious programming going on, or this energetic patterns that really needs to be broken up and cleared out so that you can actually recode for your highest and best good. And so that's why I think working at the energetic level while we support the body is a really powerful mixture, because you're really supporting the body at all aspects of all the layers.
So this seems like the perfect transition to tell us a little bit more about your work. So give the listeners a little bit of an insight into exactly what you do and where they can find more about you.
So I position myself as an energy alchemist because, as we talked about, I'm so focused on our energy, both from the physical perspective and the energetic perspective. So my signature program that I love working with people in is a one-on-one container to where we run all the functional lab tests. I customize supplements right down to a mineral formula that's customized to you. We work on mindset upgrades, lifestyle upgrades, nutritional upgrades. And then I also fold in that potent energy healing that's custom. So it's not just Reiki, it's not just IET. It really is custom to the individual in front of me with how far how ready they are, how far they want to go. There's some really beautiful integration work around that so that they're not having this experience and having this energetic detox without support. So it's really this whole person approach that gets real lasting results in warp speed. And so that's my favorite way to work with people. And then I have some other entry points as well. If someone just wants the energetic support or they just want the nutritional things, but that is my core flagship program that I love working with my clients in. And you can find me at KristinSitek.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn under Kristin Sitek.
Fantastic. And what do you have coming up? Anything exciting that you're really looking forward to this year?
So as far as what's coming up, I usually have one monthly event where I go live on a workshop. So that can be really helpful. You're welcome to pop on my Instagram and check out my link or my bio. And that should be in there for upcoming events. And then I will also be doing an upcoming group program. It's going to be called Synchronizing with Spirit Playground. So stay tuned for more details on that. And that's that.
Amazing. All right. So there's a question I ask everyone, and I am so super curious to hear what you have to say. But in your business, how do you scale smarter, not harder, and keep things lean?
Part one of that is hire really good mentors. I'm a generator and I have lots of ideas. So it's really helpful to work with you, Krista, so I can come to the table and say, hey, here are the 5 things I want to do, and use you as a soundboard and help you zoom out. And you help me zoom out and see like what's mission critical, reverse engineering the process and the timeline. So I'd say if you don't already have a mentor that is a trusted advisor that's already been where you want to go, you're missing out. And then secondly, or I guess I should say equally, is I always tune inwards because our intuition is our heart center. It's never going to lie to us. And so if I'm toggling between different ideas or if I'm sorting out what's been recommended to me by other colleagues or other professionals, I always want to check in to see, does this make sense for me? Am I excited about it? Does my energy rise in excitement or do I feel contractive when I think about this? And so I always think about, of course there's strategy involved. Like, what is the client experience going to be like? How is this going to drive my business forward? But I always lead with, am I going to love this? Like, is this going to light me up? Because that's usually such a good indicator on how that thing is going to perform. And then again, working with a mentor that can help you hold the vision, see the vision, and help you execute is so, so important. I can't imagine running my business without a mentor.
Yeah, I agree. Transformational for me. And as I shared earlier, right, Kristin is someone who I'm so grateful personally to be working with. But I found that in this season of where I'm at in things, the inner work for me is equally as important as the strategic work. And so you'll notice with the people that I'm having on the podcast and that I'm sharing with you, so many of them are supporting me in different aspects of who I am and who I'm becoming and the next level of who I am, because I think that ultimately is what leads to a stronger business and being able to scale to the next level. There's a point where the strategies come into play, like you said, the mentorship. But then I love that lens of looking inward because I do find myself very much in that point in my journey right now. And I second all of that. I think that's brilliant.
Well, all right. I had another mentor say, the only problem in your business is you, and the only solution in your business is you. And so doing that inner work really kind of takes a lot off your plate when you're leading from a heart-centered place, when you're leading from a clear energetic field where you don't have all this gunk that's distracting you and disconnecting you from your intuition. If you're eating nutritious foods and your energy is in alignment, if you've cleared out all the infections, so many things run better. And so the inner work around the shadow work and the other inner work that you're doing is really the secret weapon to how you want to scale your business, because it's like you're operating with wings as opposed to having ankles around your weights. Or weights around your ankles.
I love that. I love that like visual. Literally, I have the visual in my head as you're saying that.
I'm glad that came through.
Amazing. All right, Kristin, I feel like we could talk for like 40 days. I hope all of you are loving everything that she's sharing. She really, truly is just such a gift to me and such an incredible, brilliant, amazing, intuitive person. I feel so lucky to have you in my life. But we do need to wrap up the episode, unfortunately. So any final tips that you want to share with the listeners before we sign off today on how they should be thinking about their health and their vitality as we step deeper into this year?
I could give you 50 different things, but really what I want to leave you with is you're deserving of your own time, love, and attention. And I would love for you to treat yourself accordingly.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here, Kristin. All of her links are down below in the show notes. I will see you again next week.
Thank you.
If you are a visionary founder ready to get yourself out of the day-to-day operations of your business and scale in a much more simple, sustainable way, I have just the thing. Register to join me for my Scale Simpler workshop at scalesimpler.com. In it, I break down the hidden barriers that keep you trapped in the day-to-day of your business and what to do to finally extract yourself once and for all so things do not keep coming back onto your plate. And if you're someone who partners with founders as their right-hand advisor, consultant, or fractional, I invite you to explore our scaling certification and licensing programs at strategicopsinstitute.com.